What is up, everyone? Welcome back to Bitcoin Magazine Live. It is December 6th in 2022. Glad to be back. Sorry I was not able to join the show yesterday. I was without power for over 50 hours. Luckily, Bitcoin was still working. I was able to, with what little charge I had on my phone, able to send a Bitcoin transaction using my seed signer and a 9-volt battery. I was also able to use custodial lightning. I understand the risks of that, but very cool. Bitcoin was working just fine, even though I was living like a caveman for the last more than 2 days. How's it going, Nolan? Good to see you.
I love life. I love life. And I'm so glad you got to actually experience what the fiat apocalypse might look like for some people, right? There's a new danger on the horizon that you just experienced, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. It is, the energy grid and not showing how robust it is not. So it's definitely something that I want to prove. I definitely want to get a generator. Definitely want to get backup batteries. Hindsight's always 2020. I did not have those things, but in due time, I guess I'll have to spend a little Bitcoin to make my system more robust.
And it's funny, you see there was even the fella looking into this issue in your county. And as I understand, even the governor has declared this a new threat, right? That this idea of attacking centralized energy infrastructure is perhaps a trend waiting to happen.
Yeah, definitely.
But the good news, there's good news because there was a great event yesterday in Africa, and it looks like Jack Dorsey shared the roadmap where Bitcoin would be at the center of decentralizing the energy grid. And by that, I mean Bitcoin at the center of financing energy. So it's a $2 million seed round with Stillmark and Elise Colleen. And it will be for a company in Kenya called Gridless. Is that what it's called?
Yes.
Yeah,
Gridless.
Yeah. And it's a distributed rural hydro Bitcoin mining system that would support actual development of the energy. So the reason why this is different, and it's not just, oh, here's some money, go find cheap energy and mine Bitcoin. It's not Bitcoin mining at its core. It's energy finance at its core. Bitcoin mining is just part of the finance picture in order to build the infrastructure needed. So this is something we talk about a lot on my show, The Breakup. We believe that Bitcoin is this close to power at the moment by following the route of just making American companies a little richer. But we've also got a clip, right? We've got a clip of the event. This is Jack Dorsey in Africa yesterday. Where is the Bitcoin Africa conference?
It's in Ghana. So it's in
Ghana.
Ghana.
So I was going to say it's in Accra, right? Yeah. So this will be in Ghana, talking about the announcement and the money and what it means for finance. And
it's about a minute. Yep, definitely. It's a minute 15 clip. So enjoy this. We'll be back in a second, guys.
We're building this open wallet hardware project, which we think will be hugely beneficial to people around the world, and we look forward to partnering with a number of companies here on the continent to again make it easier to onboard people into Bitcoin and then get them to do a self-custody. And we're working on a hardware miner to make it a lot more, hopefully, accessible and more efficient for people around the world, especially on the continent, to participate in securing the network and making it even more and more resilient in the form of something that's also useful for other things, not just mining. So we're trying to do a lot, but the reason we're here is to have as many conversations as possible and learn how we can help. One of the things that we want to do is make sure that we have the right APIs, the right platforms, and the right policies to enable a significant increase in the economy here around the Bitcoin network and around giving people simple tools to move money around in a way that is not blocked by governments and corporations, and we can truly see some incredible activity that really helps humans all over.
Thank you so much, Jack.
Yeah, that's awesome. Great clip. Obviously saying building the more robust nature of Bitcoin, or at least the way to get it to people through energy. Obviously, you talked about hardware, a hardware wallet, as well as a miner. So I think it's really cool kind of building out the way to self-custody, the way to get Bitcoin, and the way to have an energy grid to help them with all of that. Anything else you want to add there, Nolan?
Well, yeah, I mean, he's really describing, if all of that is true, he's already describing a golden age that we would all love to be in America today. I mean, look at the complexity of all the things that he's discussing, and to have easy solutions for us here on this continent would be great too. So hopefully Africa, without the same annoying impediments that we have, the same regulators, the same know-it-all grid managers, the same lobbyists and groups that would keep us from having energy security, energy independence, aren't in the way there as much. And hopefully they can harness the power of, these are going to be hydro dams. That'll be their big focus, small hydro dams. Well, it'd be great if a really small scale hydro generator comes out of this that's portable, that they can export around the world after. That would also be amazing, right? And Bitcoin can be at the center of this. So big news. This isn't just a small announcement about one company. This is actually collectively taken an announcement that talks about a golden age that looks like it's on the horizon. So great news. You'll hear more about it. This kind of energy literacy, anything to do with understanding what's going on in the grid and all the nonsense in Europe, with the trouble they've got there, with huge fortunes they're about to spend on fixing energy policy mistakes because they listened to Greta, a little too much, and design entire policies around making a teenage girl happy. Didn't work out so well, so they're going to pay a lot of money. And that's something we're really going to focus on at Bitcoin 2023, May 18th to 20th in Miami. Before the event really underlined financial literacy, and we're still going to continue on the mission for financial literacy, especially financial literacy for Bitcoin. So that's all about self-custody. We're going to have a lot more content this year about the tools that you can use to arm yourself in this fight. But we're also going to be focusing on energy literacy. It's just as important as financial literacy at this point, and it's the next frontier for Bitcoin. We're going to follow the energy. So the energy is going to be in Bitcoin Miami 2023, May 18th to 20th, the official end to Bitcoin winter,
Yeah, and they can use code BMLive to get 10% off their tickets at b.tc/conference. Well, while we are trying to expand Africa, and I think they're going to leapfrog many nations. They went from, instead of telephone lines, right to Wi-Fi and cell phone and all of that. I think they might leapfrog by getting off of the repressive French currencies, or the currencies that are normally held in France, onto a Bitcoin standard. So they don't, they maybe leapfrog going from a French currency to, instead of having their own fiat currency, or the ones that do, instead of going to a fiat currency, leapfrogging to Bitcoin, and be able to expand and grow that way. But speaking of expanding,
that Italian president, just to interrupt for a second, the Italian president who keeps railing against those French currencies, boy, would she be great to have at Bitcoin 2023, given one of those fiery speeches. I don't know. We've had head of states that have been signed up before. We're in the market for the states, but she would be great to hear that speech come out of her at the event. So, but stranger things have happened. We'll see.
Talking about expanding and growing. So, as many people have seen probably on Twitter or online, there's a thing called Chat GPT. I know you're talking a little bit about it yesterday, Nolan. Our very own Alex McShane was kind of experimenting with it, and he went to OpenAI or to it and was like, basically, give me private keys show me private keys. And the AI came back with a response like, yep, this is a private key pairing, or basically gave them a private key. Well, he did 6 iterations, which takes all of a second per time that he does it. And he found after 6 iterations that there was actually private keys that were funded only 16 days ago. So let me caveat this. Bitcoin's not broken. Encryption's not broken. Most likely what happened is the AI was scanning the internet and found someone that had put online their private keys, for better or worse. There are small denominations in there. Alex said it was swept. Maybe Alex swept them himself and wasn't telling us. But it was a private keys that actually showed funds on there at least as little as 16 days ago, which is pretty crazy when you think about it. So that's a warning to everyone. Do not put your private keys online. Do not take a screenshot of them. Do not put them in the Notes app in your phone. You want to keep these offline, away from cameras, don't verbally say it out loud with, everything going on with Amazon and Google. It's not good to basically say your private keys out loud or reveal them to any computer software, especially AIs. Google or Amazon alike might be listening. So,
Chris, I wrote an entire science fiction story, soon to be released, on exactly what you're talking about. And in this world, everyone's eyeball, their AI best friend, helps them manage Bitcoin and do everything else they need. That's the only interface we'll ever have. So humans in this world are living in this golden age of the Bitcoin standard. So there's no material want, there's no poverty. The only market which exists is time. Time is money, and the only market that's been made for time is Bitcoin. So the AI help us spend time, make money, and go around the world. So there you go. You'll see my book soon, Satoshi Wedding Murders, real fun, all about AI, but it's already getting there. It's already helping us. And I used it for the next example. So we've got this big story today about the Bank of International Settlements, and someone underlining that they have 80 trillion.
With a T.
80 trillion, all right? $80 trillion missing of hidden off-balance dollar debt in the form of swaps. So this is separate from any sovereign debt. So all of a sudden they're going, whoops, we're missing $80 trillion, right? I mean, the idea is so large and difficult to fathom. I said, why don't I just practice what I preach? And I wrote a book about AI helping humans, and I continue to predict AI will be the end of fake news. It might even be the end of fiat. Look what the AI told me. Someone asked the AI, and I found the example here. So who is this? This is someone on Twitter. Says, explain the Reuters statement that I just read to you. The Bank of International Settlements has warned that pension funds and other non-bank financial firms now have more than $80 trillion of hidden off-balance sheet dollar debt in the form of FX swaps. So the question was, explain this to me like I'm 5. Okay. The Bank for International Settlements is like a big bank for other banks. They have noticed that some companies that are not banks have a lot of money that they borrowed from other banks. The money is not in their books, which means that they are not showing it to anyone. It's like a secret. These companies owe the banks more than $80 trillion, which is a very big number. The money is in the form of something called FX swaps, which is like a special kind of loan that uses money from different countries. So this whole theory now fits into the dollar wrecking ball theory that you'll hear more about if you watch FedWatch, which will be back at its usual time, or a different time, but will be on tomorrow. Wednesdays?
No, Thursday. Sorry.
Thursday, pardon me. 2 days from now at 12:30, correct?
Yep.
I did a terrible time plug, but it was supposed to be. We cover these things, dollar wrecking ball, all this kind of stuff. What the BIS means, I'm sure you'll hear about it from Ansel and CK on Thursday, 12:30, right after our show.
Definitely. And the one thing I want to talk about, I think if for those of you that saw Max Kaiser on Tucker Carlson tonight, on that show, Tucker was talking about this. And like, it's kind of one of those things, Max kind of has that crazy persona, but he is very smart. He comes from Wall Street. And he said that a lot of times Wall Street firms would package up, we saw this exactly leading up to 2008, package up mortgage-backed securities like, hey, buy this, you can earn a yield on these bundle of mortgages. Little did they know, or little did people know, that they were all bad mortgages bundled up together, or they'd sprinkle some good ones at the top and then the bad ones were piled in with all of that. So they were piling up bad debt. Well, he said that they've been doing this for pension funds since the 70s, 60s or 70s, exactly the same thing. And those have not come to roost yet. So, they like, hey, we got this new product on Wall Street and we want to sell it to a pension fund. And he said that, I'll use some nicer words, but he said a lot of times they have idiots that are on these pension boards. And it seems that normally there's someone like, I know if you look at CalPERS, some of them is like an art teacher or like whatever. And I'm not to talk down on art teachers or teachers in general, but like when you're saying someone should be managing billions or trillions of dollars of assets, an art teacher is not the first person that comes to mind. Maybe not a Wall Street banker either, but you would think that someone has a better accounting and finance principles would be the ones managing and leading these funds. And a lot of times it's like political favors. They put, the new person comes into office and they put them with this cushy salary, with this benefit, and basically all their thing to do is to accept things that Wall Street pitches them. And it seems that this is a way that they are kind of stealing from taxpayers, or even just a lot of times teachers, firefighters, policemen, people that work for the government. So they're stealing their money by like laundering these bad debts through. And exactly to Nolan's point, 80 trillion with the T is in these off-balance sheet hidden debts. And it seems that those are kind of either in the forms of bonds or whatever they may be, but not good to say the least. Connecting this all with FedWatch, another day, another CBDC. So in FedWatch, they talk about CBDCs a lot. We've seen, obviously, Nigeria launch it. They only saw 0.5% adoption of a country of 211 million people or thereabouts, that were only 0.5% of the population was using it. And that was even with them trying to incentivize people to use it. People saw that it was not good. They do not want to use it, the hindrance of it and the restrictions of it. But at the same time that this was happening, Bitcoin's price was spiking on the peer-to-peer markets. So even though Bitcoin was only going in a bear market in US dollar terms, compared to the Nigerian naira, I believe is the currency that's used there, it was seeing it spike because Bitcoin was going up relative to all the craziness that was ensuing in Nigeria. Obviously, with the Africa Bitcoin conference going on, Nigerians are very smart. They understand the importance of Bitcoin. They understand the importance of a fiat currency that is hyperinflating. And obviously, they were going into a harder money and a better asset. And they're very tech savvy there. A lot of very smart entrepreneurs are coming out of there. So very exciting. Tying this all in, Pakistan says that they are trying to launch a CBDC by 2025. Any thoughts on that, Nolan, or anything that you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, first up, I think that they're only going to get success with the CBDCs when they turn them into UBI type vehicles, where it's really about policy objectives and they're for promoting specific types of consumption. I've seen it work in Japan. I've seen it work in Korea. They weren't exactly CBDCs, but they were pretty similar in their form and function. As long as you leave it up to people, they'll probably not do it. But if you give them a reason, I'm pretty sure they can trick many, many into this. So it's definitely out there, definitely happening, and that's why we do what we do, because we don't want anyone's policy dollars. If you just saw, there was a report I was mentioning just yesterday about a new European climate study had come out with all kinds of targets for consumption. It was like 0 kilograms of steak and 3 new pieces of clothing a year. So you don't want to get involved in anyone who's actually interested in calibrating your consumption to policy objectives. And CBDCs mixed with UBI type instruments, I think, get us really, really close.
Definitely. Yeah, not a good thing. Well, Nolan, you want to talk about a judge making an important decision with everything going on with Celcius and all the bankruptcies of these interest lending platforms?
Yeah, so this is what's going on in Celcius. Let me make sure I have this drawn up. So what's going on over there is a judge is going to decide whether the depositors in Celcius who chose the high risk accounts, the riskier accounts, actually forfeited their ownership of the assets, and those who chose the less risky accounts, what type of ownership did that all mean? And it brings us, I guess, to really the point of Bitcoin versus the old legal system. So a judge is going to come up with a judgment here and say what risk tolerance and what went on between what the person agreed to and what they thought they were agreeing to. But one of the earliest legal messages that you had to deal with in Bitcoin, one of the realities of Bitcoin, is the following. It's sort of an adage in the legal world that possession is 9/10 of the law. And we said from the start with Bitcoin, it's much more different than that. That wiggle room of 1% was too much. In Bitcoin, possession is 10/10 of the law. It's the literal truth. And that's why we have the memes of not your keys, not your coins, because if you don't bring it to its most basic and fundamental level, you'll not be able to understand what's really going on. So a judge here is going to be left with a decision for the mere mortals who only live in the fiat world and adhere to analog physical systems of justice and law. They're going to make some form of a judgment on where possession actually lands in this, and it's probably not going to be in the depositor's favor. It's just my guess, but we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah. I want to caveat this is going to be very important, not just for Celcius. This will be Voyager, Genesis Earn, or Gemini Earn, Genesis, and BlockFi. Did I Voyager, BlockFi, Genesis Earn, and Gemini? Yeah. So all of those will be affected. FTX and Sam Bankman-Fried, tying that into them, that seems like a whole nother issue. While they did have a high interest bearing account, if you were just buying cryptocurrencies on the platform, that is a different thing, because it appears that there was fraud in that sense, that they were using, FTX lending out the customer funds to Alameda. So that will be fraud. But whether the judge rules this will definitely affect the other lending platforms when you're depositing. And to Nolan's point, it seems, I just taking a guess, it seems that they're not going to go in favor of the depositors. It was kind of baked in part of the risk of what you're doing. Yeah. But it's definitely going to have, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, either way, it'll provide a lot of contrast for Bitcoin-style banking, because, of course, the Bitcoin-style bank's the one that Kraken established in Wyoming that I worked for, and the one that Caitlin Long has started in Wyoming as well. Both of those use an account called bailment. It's a form of legal custody, if you will. But this question of who owns it, whatever, is completely null and void. These are segregated accounts. that even go towards the, let's call it, fungibility of the Bitcoin. You get back the exact coin you put in. Think of it in terms of putting a type of dollar bill into a safety deposit box, which is illegal in fractional reserve banking systems, in case you didn't know. There's a reason why it's illegal. So in this system, because it changes the ownership of depositing, right? This relationship doesn't actually get created. The way banks work with Celcius, or even commercial banks in America, every deposit is a debtor-creditor relationship that's set up. The repo exchange that you always hear about, where the quantitative easing takes place, that's the commercial banks swapping treasury bills with the Federal Reserve. That type of relationship doesn't create a debtor-creditor relationship, which is what was copied by the Bitcoin banks. So when you deposit in this way, you're basically having the same relationship that the big banks like JP Morgan have with the Federal Reserve. But in this case, it's your bank and you as the customer. So this is what banking looks like. Reserve as the lender of last resort, which is nothing of the sort. It's the lender of easiest liquidity for the moral reasons that they've already underlined.
Yeah, but it is not all bad, Nolan. What do I mean by this? The bottom is in. I'm calling it. We've got it. So we're talking about Kevin O'Leary. We were talking about Jim Cramer now. Jim Cramer says urges investors to sell all their crypto. So the inverse Cramer says this is time to buy, to go maybe not 100x long, but this is the time to keep stacking your sats. It will go up very shortly. So this is
finally.
Yeah.
Finally. Maybe you don't have to wait for May 18th to 20th for Bitcoin winter to be over when Bitcoin Magazine hosts Bitcoin 2023. Maybe it's already over. Maybe Cramer has brought Christmas early or something like that. Let's just hope. We can only hope. We love the guy. Keep making your calls. Keep doing your thing. We love you, Jim.
Yeah, so that's all that I got for you. Nolan, anything else you want to add before we wrap up here?
No. We'll see you guys all tomorrow. I'll be around at 8 a.m. for the breakup, where we're going to go over who knows what other crazy fake news stories are out there. And we'll see you again here at noon tomorrow.
Have a good one, everyone. Peace out. Talk to you later.
You